So when did you first realise that you might be dyslexic, and what were some of the early signs for you?
When did I first realise? Well, it would be in primary, I'm pretty sure.
Dyslexia is something a lot of people have heard of, but not everyone fully understands it. It's a learning difference that can affect your reading, writing, spelling, and even number skills. It's not a measure of intelligence, not at all. It simply means that someone processes information in a different way. About 10% of the people in the UK are diagnosed with dyslexia, roughly about 7 million people, which already makes it pretty common. But within Scottish agriculture, the numbers are even higher, with estimates suggesting that as many as 1 in 4 farmers are affected. That's a huge increase. And yet, despite how common it is, the real challenges faced by people with dyslexia in farming are often misunderstood, overlooked, not talked about enough. This is why it's so important to start an open, honest conversation about dyslexia within Scottish agriculture, and why it matters more than many people realise.
Yeah, I'm Nick Snyman.
I'm Adam Watson, I'm an arable farmer.
I'm Alex Hilton, I'm the programme leader at Crabeston for the agriculture course. My background is that I'm a crops lecturer here. I've taught here for, I think for lots of years, so over 15 years. And yes, I'm dyslexic.
I've got severe dyslexia, technically classed as word blindness it was when I was assessed.
Most of my entire life basically with dyslexia.
Come with us on this journey as we uncover the people with dyslexia in the agricultural community, what it is and how people deal with it. Daniel has come to a family farm to find out how dyslexia affects an SRUC student.
So what ways would you say dyslexia impacts your work in agriculture and on the farm?
So my work in agriculture and on
Yeah.
the farm. I mean, I wouldn't say it impacts much with the work outside and the physical labour, because that's quite easy. That's, you're not using reading for much of that. It'd be more the stuff that you do when it would be probably paperwork and things like that. I haven't had much involvement with that. I've been beginning to look more at it with my parents and that. And I think I'd be able to manage, but it is just that. But there are many ways I'm sure I could get around with using many of the tools and technology, which is quite handy. But I mean, I've also just managed to try and do it myself as well, just reading more.
If you know farmers on a personal level, you'll hear the same thing over and over about practical work. But what we don't always hear is that behind the tractors, livestock, and behind the graft, there's a lot of paperwork. In fact, Scottish agriculture today is nearly drowning in forms, audits, mandatory plans, digital reporting systems, and very, very wordy documents. And for farmers with dyslexia, that's creating problems most folk never really see.
Gillis has come to SRUC to find out more from one of the lecturers with dyslexia.
Do you believe people with dyslexia face certain issues within Scottish agriculture?
So dyslexia is obviously a learning issue that many people like me have. Is it an issue in agriculture? I think there are lots of people in agriculture who have dyslexia. Some of those people will have been diagnosed, other people will not be aware of it. For me personally, is it an issue? It's hard for me to know, because this is the way I am. This is the way, as a dyslexic, I am. Has it held me back, I suppose, is a difficult thing. But I think, yes, we all have strengths and weaknesses. My weakness is reading quickly, writing, etc. But has it held me back? No. In agriculture, I think people find their place. So some people will be more interested in the practical stuff. Does dyslexia help you affect that? No, absolutely not. But there are things where, you know, I can see that dyslexia would hold people back in terms of perhaps sort of reading technical information, being able to convey messages is hard, perhaps harder for some people. I do think, you know, as an industry, you know, we are fortunate in that it's very diverse, so there is a place for everybody. And I think it's important to add as well that dyslexia is not just seen, for me, it's not just a weakness, it's also a strength. So when you get tested, yes, I have weaknesses in writing, but I have strengths in other areas. So you know, perhaps I can see things a bigger picture, and I think people forget that people think it's a disability. It's not a disability, it's a learning disorder. So I think it is an issue that affects many people in agriculture, and I think it's something that we need to be more aware of, and so that we can support those people through that.
Research going back more than a decade shows that dyslexia is often associated with strengths in mechanical reasoning, problem solving, creativity, and spatial awareness. In other words, the exact practical skills you'd want in someone running a farm. Maintaining machinery, handling livestock, planning fields, or adapting to unpredictable conditions. The problem is, those strengths are barely recognised. A Scottish study in 2018 found that only 18% of workers felt their workplace actually valued their strengths associated with dyslexia. Think about that. In a sector where hands-on problem solving is everything, we still measure competence mainly by how well someone fills out a form.
To find out more, Gillis talks to Adam Watson, a dyslexic arable farmer.
What effects do you think these issues have on the individual affected?
Yeah,
what issues can you see them?
Just I would say again, it's having to put that extra support on the family. You need, if you've not got, like I've got a wife who's helping and she's helps me do all the paperwork and things like that. So it's just having a support network to help you do that. I think it's a big, if you've not got that, it can be difficult. Or yeah, it's the paperwork side of it, like the amount of audits you have to do.
Let's put some real faces to this issue. There's Sandy Murray, a crofter from the northeast, who openly talked to the Farmer's Guardian about mixing ear tag numbers up during TB testing due to his dyslexia. Something that can easily happen when digits flip or they don't stick in your working memory. A simple mistake, but one that could have led to the wrong animal being killed. And then there's the Dumfries and Galloway sheep farmer Sandy McCreath, who once chose to pay out of his own pocket for farm building tens of thousands of pounds just to avoid dealing with the grant paperwork. Imagine knowing that you qualify for the financial support, but feel so overwhelmed by the forms that it feels easier to give up the money entirely.
That's just a bit trickier.
We maybe try to avoid the paperwork side or anything like that because of it, or is it something you're...
Well, I have tried to avoid, but I think that's probably the wrong thing for me to have done. So I think now, last few years, I've been trying to do it more, and just because I think it's better to challenge myself and do it and hopefully get better than not to. Well, then I won't improve on anything. But yeah, I think it's better to try and challenge myself with doing these more technical things. And I do know I can do them because I've done them before. Well, I've done parts, and I think that I can achieve that, so obviously I can achieve more. So I mean, I've managed to go through college and get a degree, so if I can manage that, I think I can do most of the technical stuff on a farm with that stuff. So.
And these aren't isolated cases. Across Scottish agriculture, digitalisation is growing rapidly. Online applications, digital maps, geotagged photos, automated reporting systems. Great for efficiency, unless you're someone who struggles with dense text, long questions, or time-pressured digital forms. Take the Future Farming Investment Scheme. The background section alone asks 14 long, heavy questions, including things like, describe which vision for agriculture prioritises your activities currently deliver. If you have dyslexia, that's not just inconvenient, it can be paralysing.
Do you believe there's enough awareness and support outlets for those with dyslexia in Scottish agriculture?
I think we're getting better. I think there's, in Scottish agriculture, yeah, I would say there's an awful lot of people who are dyslexic. Is it in Scottish agriculture? I guess many of the older generation might not know they're dyslexic. For people like of my age, might not have ever been tested, might just find it really hard. I do think that the younger generation coming through, because it's much more tested at school, so they're much more aware of it. So, and I think that there's a conversation to be had. I think that there could be more support for people with dyslexia to help them within the sector. So maybe it'd be a good opportunity to have some workshops maybe for dyslexics. How do you manage your dyslexia in a business context, for example?
Scottish farming is a very proud culture. It's a resilient and independent kind of world. And that's great until it isn't. Because in many rural communities, dyslexia carries a quiet but powerful social stigma. There's often a belief, sometimes spoken, sometimes not, that struggling with reading or paperwork means you're not smart or not organised. And in a sector built on reputation and competence, that fear can weigh pretty heavily. Research in 2024 found that within the workplace, employees often hide their dyslexia simply to protect their credibility, due to the fear of being seen as less capable. Earlier studies back this up too, with a study in 2007 finding that 45% of dyslexic employees didn't disclose their dyslexia at all, purely because they were worried they'd be judged by their peers. Silence can be even more common. Why? Because dyslexia is still influenced, in some places, by old school expectations. Don't complain and don't ask for help. And yes, toxic masculinity can play a part in that. So does the pressure to keep the farm going, no matter what. The result? Many farmers conceal their dyslexia for years, even decades. And hiding something that shapes how you read, write, remember, and process information, it can take a hefty toll. Studies found that people who conceal their dyslexia experience higher levels of emotional distress, anxiety, low self-esteem, and significant mental strain.
Do you believe there's any social stigmas involved with individuals with dyslexia within Scottish agriculture? So for example, do you think some individuals are maybe frightened to show their experiences with dyslexia to friends, family, college lecturers?
Sometimes, I would say, yeah. How do I phrase this right? I made sure people didn't bully me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they only did it once. Mm-hmm. I think some people might look down on you, but I've always been very honest with dyslexia. So if people have a problem with it, if they say it to my face, they'll get told where to go. Or I've got a very good group of friends who rip me constantly and have several things that are non-PC that they call me, but are the same. If anyone was saying anything, they would be the first people to say anything. Yeah, so it can be a problem. I think it's changing. Like I'm sure, like I said, for the older generation, it'd be a lot different.
And when you combine that with the reality that Scottish and UK farmers already face higher than average rates of depression and suicide, the picture becomes pretty worrying. According to the UK Parliament, male agricultural workers have some of the highest suicide rates of any occupation, with further studies finding that they exceed the national average more than any other professional group. It's not hard to see why this topic is something we need to talk about. And the stigma doesn't stop within working farmers. It also shows up in rural education too. At SRUC campuses today, around 1/4 of students still receive learning support for dyslexia or other related conditions. But even with support available, many are scared to use it.
Yeah, I think there is a bit, so some people might think that, but I hope they don't. I hope that they don't. I think some people are afraid to come find that they might be dyslexic. I think they might be a negative side to it. Well, not really. There's not really, in my eyes, there's not really. I think we're much more an understanding society than we ever used to be. And as I said, there is much more support, technology to help people with those disorders. So for me, I found out quite late that I was dyslexic. It wasn't a thing when I was a student. I was just told I was lazy at school. I mean, some of you might be laughing at that. But actually, when I did find out, it explained a lot of things to me. It explained that's why I find it hard and difficult. And it was actually quite a relief to know it wasn't just it wasn't because I was lazy. So I would encourage people, if they think they might be dyslexic, go and get tested, find out, talk to people.
Research also shows that even in universities where support systems are well established, dyslexic students often avoid disclosing their condition because they fear being treated differently or judged as less capable. And the challenges aren't just about reading. Agriculture involves Latin names, thousands of them. Animals, over 2.1 million species. Plants, around 375,000. Students are expected to write, pronounce and memorise them, often for graded work or presentations. If long or unfamiliar words are already difficult, standing in front of the class and saying brachopodium dystachyon becomes a nightmare. Combine that with long written assessments, reports and digital exams, and dyslexic students can easily end up feeling behind or slow or not as smart as everyone else. Many become withdrawn academically or even socially.
Would you say people in the industry have an accurate kind of understanding of dyslexia and what it really means, or?
It would be hard to say, to be honest. I mean, my dad's dyslexic, my brother's dyslexic, and I think my brother, he's got good support. We've had good support through college, so I think college has a good understanding, but whether going to other farmers and that have a good understanding, it'd be hard to say, to be honest. But so I couldn't really give a proper idea for that.
When people don't understand dyslexia, those living with it often feel alone, even in a community as close-knit as agriculture. But here's the good news. Things are changing for the better.
Alright, let's talk solutions, because the story of dyslexia in Scottish agriculture isn't just a story about barriers, it's also about opportunity. And it all starts with awareness. For decades, dyslexia went unnoticed in rural Scotland. People's strong practical skills were often assumed to be doing fine because their work was of high quality and they were getting the job done, despite reading or writing being difficult for them. Many adult farmers today were never assessed, never diagnosed, or never supported for their own dyslexia. How do you think we can help support these issues faced?
I think the first thing to say is that we are in a much better place now than we've ever have been. We're far more aware that people, the way people see things and do things is different. I think we're much more accepting of that. So I think the first thing is having an understanding that people do learn in different ways, do need different supports. I think not just dyslexics, but lots of different people require that. So, for example, at the college, we have support staff that help with that. Equally, we can design sort of studies and assessments to reflect people's needs, or be more sort of flexible with how we do things. So I think there's lots of things that we can help people with and be more understanding of. I think in the workplace, I think there's also should be an acknowledgement that people have different strengths and weaknesses. That's normal. Everybody has it. It's just that dyslexics has got this thing about reading. So I think there is. People are much more aware of it. That can you get a colleague to help you to write that report, for example, that you have to do? Can you just check it? That's help. Or we're also at a time where technology is playing an increasing support. So use of AI, use of when I was young, we didn't have spell checks on the computer. That's brilliant. I don't think about spelling anymore. Thank goodness, otherwise I would be telling all sorts of things that were wrong. So technology can help us, and I think that's, again, is an encouraging thing to do. So we've got lots of things that we can do these days.
Yeah. But fortunately, that's changing for the better. Organisations like Dyslexia Scotland offer guidance, training and community support for rural adults. The Scottish educational sector has improved screening access and awareness campaigns. SRUC provides assessments, learning support and funded adjustments through the Disabled Students Allowance.
I've come to SRUC to find out what kind of support is available to students.
So I am Amy Ronald and I'm the Academic Liaison Manager and one of the Student Support Tutors at SRUC Aberdeen campus. I've been in the student support team for about 10 years.
What sort of support is available to those with dyslexia within the educational institution like SRUC?
So there's a lot of different support that could be used by students. So some of the common things is obviously extra time. We make sure all the materials are online beforehand so that students can access them to kind of either print out and annotate their notes or just use them however they see fit. We also have kind of study support that they can access, pastoral support as well, so kind of the wellbeing support. There is also a fund called Disabled Student Allowance that they can access, which gives funding for things like assistive technology, so there's software that kind of records your lectures alongside it. There's also software that can read out loud to you, you can kind of dictate into it, and there's spell check and things like that as well. And that will also fund kind of equipment like laptops, voice recorders, things like that that might be useful. What I would say is all the support is quite specific to individuals, so although there's a wide range of support, you don't have to have all of them. You can try and see what works best for you, because we do find quite a lot of students have had possibly not an awful lot of support in school or kind of are getting late diagnoses with us, so it is just seeing what works best for the student.
But awareness alone isn't enough. Support needs to be normalised, not hidden. We need a culture shift from don't let anyone know about your dyslexia to there's nothing wrong with asking for support.
What barriers do you think still remain in people seeking diagnosis or educational support?
I think one of the big ones is admitting that they're struggling, so that can be quite difficult. What we do try to do is make it quite an inclusive culture at SRUC and kind of talk about these things at the start of term, just at the start of the academic year, so that students feel comfortable. What we also recognise is it can be quite difficult throughout school if you've not had the right support and you've been struggling to actually feel comfortable enough to make that or to let us know about it. So we kind of give opportunities and say to students, you can let us know at any point in the year. Also being able to tell staff as well, because they're people that you see all the time rather than the support staff. So I think that's quite a big barrier, is actually the comfort level to disclose, and obviously kind of past experience, but also not wanting to be kind of singled out, so that can be a wee bit challenging. But I think because you see other students coming out for a variety of reasons, that hopefully does help. The other thing would be kind of financially, so a lot of times we do get students coming through the school system who haven't been screened. It does cost quite a bit of money, so that can be something that before you come and study with us, that can be a wee bit of a challenge to get that actual formal diagnosis and get the proper support in place.
Farmers are used to asking for expert advice on animal nutrition, soil health, machinery, crop rotations, so why not literacy or personal administrative problems?
What advice would you give to a student who believes they show potential signs of dyslexia?
Getting support, especially getting people assessed, making it not a problem.
So I would say come and speak to somebody in the support team, but you can also speak to your lecturers if that's something that you think might be an issue. It's always worth just having a chat. It doesn't have to be anything. We're not scary. We really want to be there to help. But we do know that we don't always see you all the time, so even if you want to have a chat with your lecturer, they're seeing your work, so they could have an idea and then refer you on to us. But I would say if you do have any concerns about having dyslexia, come and speak to us. It's not the support we put in place is not difficult to put in place, we just need to know about it. So I would say just speak to somebody, also even kind of raising it with friends, family, to get that support as well. So yeah, just speak to somebody and find out what's going on.
That's why the documentary project includes interviews, not just with the farmers living with dyslexia, but with educators, assessors and support staff who all work in the rural sector. Their stories shine a real light on the barriers faced and the strengths of dyslexia. Because the truth is, dyslexia often brings the advantages that agriculture needs more than ever. Strong spatial awareness, creative problem solving, innovation, risk taking, mechanical skills, the ability to see systems differently. A key statement that I personally love that sums up the experience pretty well is from the dyslexic New Zealand farmer Logan Wallace, who once said, "Dyslexia turns farming into a problem solving adventure." Still, we can't pretend the system is fixed. It's not. There are steps in the right direction, of course. However, Scottish agriculture still needs a lot of work, especially within its framework. This includes dyslexia-friendly versions of mandatory documents, simpler wording in grant forms, audio options or verbal submissions of forms, clear guidance notes, more accessible government portals, recognition in policy that literacy is not the only form of intelligence. What future changes would you like to see to those who are affected by dyslexia, and what improvements would you like to see?
The design of forums, or like if everything's going digital, and my pet peeve is when you get sent a document and it's read only, or it's formatted in a way that it comes up as a photo and you can't select or you can't read sections. It is just the biggest pet peeve. Or that's the biggest pet peeve. My favourite thing to do, it's maybe not the same as your question, but it's to actually sit down with a group of farmers or people that have dyslexia, say, right, what phones have you got? And if they've got iPhones, I can just show them 5 or 6 different techniques and things to do to set up on your phone to make, like when someone hands you something, it can read it to you, and you don't look any different to anyone else. I think that's the big thing. It's not appearing any different. If you can hold your phone over, take a photo of something, and it'll read it to you, you don't look any different to anyone else. I think that's the biggest pressure that's maybe been on people, is having the confidence to say that they've got dyslexia might be an issue. I've always had to be able to say it because I couldn't read or write at all. Still can't very well. So I've always been quite good at saying, no, I can't read that, I can't do that because of this. But I think that's a big part of it. It's normalising it in a sense that, who cares? It's a phrase I've said many times. I've done dyslexia talks with the society. Who cares if you can't read it? There's something else that can do instead to help you.
And within communities, we need more open conversation in marts and classrooms, over the phone while you're ploughing a field in your tractor, online, everywhere. If we want things to change, awareness needs to reach everyone. At the end of the day, dyslexia doesn't make anyone less of a farmer, or a crofter, or a student. It doesn't make them any less capable. If anything, it adds strengths, perspectives, and abilities that Scottish agricultural future genuinely needs. What holds people back isn't dyslexia, it's the systems around them. And the systems can change. The more we talk about it, the more we understand it, the stronger our rural communities will become.
If you have been affected by any of the content in this video, links have been placed in the description to find out more. Thank you for watching.